Welcome to Lock It Down Sports. I'm your host, Locke Hoover. And as always, you can follow me on Twitter at Lock It Media. That's Lock It Media. You can also follow us as a network at E5280 Sports. That's E5280 Sports. And there's so much to get into today, as to me, I think the NCAA needs to accept who they really are. The plan for the Braves' fifth starting spot is coming into a clearer picture now. And the University of Minnesota is on to something. But first, let me get into this news that we saw the other day in the Bills trading Stefon Diggs to the Texans. I read that, I was like, whoa. In this trade, the Bills receive a second round pick, a next year's 2025 second round pick, while the Texans receive Diggs, a 2024 sixth and fifth round pick. So they had to trade 2 picks and Diggs just to receive a second round pick. Great deal and great trade, if you ask me, for the Texans. You get 3 assets for a second round pick, Diggs and 2 late round picks. And without weapons that CJ Stroud already has now in Joe Mixon and Tank, it's a dangerous combination for a second-year quarterback and a team that has already made it to the playoffs last year. Scary what Texans are building. And it's, if you're a Texans fan, you got to love it. I mean, what they're doing, what they're building, it's great. Now, like I said, I don't really understand this on the Bills' end. You're taking a weapon, the weapon, away from Josh Allen. The number one weapon as a throwing quarterback who's trying to get to the next level. You haven't made it to the Super Bowl yet. Obviously, of course, you haven't even won a Super Bowl yet. With Josh Allen, last year, he had 107 receptions, 1,000 yards, 1,183 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Oh, yeah, he played in all 17 games. You're the Bills. You are not in rebuild mode at this point. I mean, you still got this window with Josh Allen, and yeah, you lost some pieces on defense, but still. And you just signed him to a long-term deal, or another 3-year deal, in Stefon Diggs. So your cap space is fine, or else you wouldn't have signed him to that long-term deal. So my only understanding of this could be that it's Julio Jones. It's the Julio Jones situation. And what do you mean by that, Locke? Well, for me, what I mean by that is you think he's done. Yeah, the Falcons traded Julio for a second-round pick for the Titans a few years ago. And this is what it got me to thinking. Maybe this is maybe it's this situation. So Julio was 31 his last season in Atlanta. Diggs is 30. But you saw the steady decline in Julio. So Julio's last season in Atlanta, played 6 games, only had 51 receptions for 771 yards. Previous 6 years, 100 receiving yards. Also, though, Julio was always nicked up and banged up and would take major plays off. He would take plays off all the time, and it would just drive Falcons fans crazy how annoying it would be for Julio Jones to be taking major plays off. Like I said, he was always nicked up and banged up as well. And you could look at the last 3 seasons for Julio up until his age 34 season, where it was not a good season in Atlanta, age 31, 32 season in Texas. I mean, in Tennessee, bad. Tampa, he was a third or fourth option. And then Philly last year, he was just kind of on the team and he was a fourth, fifth receiver. So his last 3 years, granted, it wasn't part of the contract. He was signing, those 1-year deals with Philly and with Tampa. But it just showed you the decline that he was at. So maybe this is the Bill Belichick thought of trade/release him a year early instead of a year too late deal, since Diggs will be 34 when he ends his deal. But I mean, it is crazy for Diggs to be traded his every year in Minnesota. I mean, in Buffalo, he's been a 1,000-yard receiver. So it's interesting. And then it's funny too when you look at just some trade comparisons here. When Amari Cooper was traded to Cleveland, Dallas received a 5th, and they swapped 6th-round picks from the Browns for Cooper. Now, once again, I love that trade then for the Browns, and it's looking like it's been a well-received trade as well. And when it, and on some ends, I kind of get a little bit coming from Dallas because they have Lamb. They drafted a few years when Cooper was there. So it's like, all right, well, we feel good about Lamb, so we can trade Cooper. He'd get more expensive, cap situation. Let's try to get some value from him. But still, Dallas received a fifth, and they swapped 6th-round picks for Amari Cooper, 2,000-yard receiving years in Cleveland. Now, granted, Cooper was traded at age 28, his age 28 season, and played his age 29 season with the Browns. So, yes, 2 years younger with the trade. But like I said, he produced 2,000-yard years in 2022 and 2023. And we know the quarterback situation the last 2 years in Cleveland with Jacoby Brissett, and then a few games with Deshaun Watson, and then the quarterback carousel before they finally settle on Joe Flacco. The gods and the emerging of Joe Flacco really helped Amari Cooper and that sort of thing. But 2,000-yard receiving years for a 5th-round pick, and you don't have a stable quarterback like you do in Dak Prescott. I mean, like I said, I feel like the value board is kind of all over the place when it comes to acquiring top wide receiver talent. I mean, Judy cost the Browns a 5th and a 6th, but he's also on the last year of his deal. Keenan Allen, he got what? He was traded for a 4th, I believe. Keenan Allen, a 4th. Yeah, he does have a lot of injury. He's had a lot of injury issues and concerns, but it's interesting. So to me, I mean, where does Josh Allen go now at wide receiver? I mean, it's not good. Curtis Samuels, Kamal Shakir maybe as your 2 guys at this point. Yeah, they say the receiving class is deep. You can get one. Do they go first round receiver now? Or do they get one later in the draft because they say, like I said, it's deep? Or at this point, maybe they go two receivers, right? I mean, to replace Allen, to replace Diggs, it's and how the receiving core is, it's not ideal for Josh Allen, who you keep battling Cincinnati and the Super Bowl champs to get to the Super Bowl to win the conference. It's a tall task already, and now you're short on the receiving end in a passing league. They've definitely dropped in their conference, and you got the Dolphins biting at their heels to potentially win the conference and the division. So it's a lot tougher. Division's gotten better. I mean, Tua's only getting better. You got Tyreek Hill down there. Their offense down in Miami on that fast turf and that fast surface, it's dangerous. They might not even win their division. So see what happens. But great move by the Texans. Absolutely great move when it's the second in next year's draft. So well done. And I think it's only going to be reap benefits for CJ Stroud. Now, here's my question with this one. Why doesn't the NCAA just accept who they are now and make all these changes? Bob Stoops spoke about the NCAA and saying, why doesn't it go straight to a pro model? And here are some of his comments, and I actually do agree with a good portion of what he said. Bob Stoops, head coach in the UFL now, and he loves it there. He loves the gig, which just shows you what state college football is continuing to be. Obviously, all these exodus of coaches going to the league. You got Bob Stoops, national championship winning head coach, has retired from Oklahoma, but he's been in the UFL, a spring football league, and he loves it because he doesn't have to worry about anything but football. But he's saying about the NCAA, said there needs to be a salary cap on what you spend. Obviously, pro model. You've got to have contracts, etc. Said, I don't see how you can't at this point, which is fair. And then we've heard this for a while. Think the Power Four conference will break away and ditch the NCAA completely, especially when it comes to the football realm of it. And like I said, I've heard similar comments before with them breaking off. Now, to me, I would be completely fine, and I kind of do agree at this point. They almost should create a salary cap, and that's your NIL pool to spend. Right now it's no holds bar with these colleges spending all kinds of money on NIL players and the portal, and some high school kids. You hear Ryan Day come out and say, yeah, it cost about 15 or 20 million to put in a good team on the field, and it's like, what did you say? When he said that, you're like, yeah, I can see that. Get some portal kids, get some 5-star kids, and that's the cost of doing business these days when it comes to NIL and portal kids and high school kids. I think if they do have a salary cap, i.e. the NIL collectives, I think it would level out the playing field with schools competing. Because now you have kids that may choose another school if all things are created equal except the money. Do I want to go to Oregon or Oklahoma State? I like what Gundy's doing down there, but Oregon's offering more money and all things are equal, so I'm going to go to Oregon. Or I'm trying to decide between Tennessee and North Carolina. I like Mac Brown and I like Josh Heupel and their position coaches. But Tennessee can offer me more money. I'm going to Knoxville. I think, or on the other end, it's, hey, I like X school a little bit better, but I can get more money from school Y, and my family needs it, so I'm going there. And then in 2 years, I'm going to go in the portal and potentially get more money from another school. So I think there needs to be a salary cap and put it on the NIL front. And another thing Bob Stoops said is there needs to be a commissioner because the NCAA president can't do it. He doesn't know what he's doing. He can't handle this. He's in way over his head. I actually do agree with this. There needs to be some sort of governing body of some sorts at least. And I think it should not be the college commissioners, the conference commissioners, as in i.e. the Big Ten, the SEC can continue to control it. I mean, look what they just did recently in the college football playoff. They said, know what? We're going to take the lion's share of the money. Why? Because we're the best teams. We're the best schools. We put out the best product. And the other college commissioners and teams, the ACC and the Big 12 are like, okay, yeah, sure. We're fighting for scraps. So, yeah, we'll take what we can get. If the Big Ten SEC controlled it, I think NIL, I don't think it would be distributed evenly. It's, you know what? We're the best schools. We've had the most national championships in the last 15 years. Guess who should get this money? Us. We should get more of the NIL pool salary cap money. So they should not be in control of it. And when it comes to the college plan of being more like the NFL, why is it not time to expand the amount of college coaches a staff can have? I mean, and that's been proposed already. It's been turned down, and it's been proposed again. Right now, they're only allowed to have 11 coaches, which, when you think about it, is pretty incredible. You're not allowed to have more than 11 coaches on-field coaches. Yes, there's grad assistants. Yes, there's quality controls coaches. There's analysts, all that, which of course it gets murky in that area. But 11 on-field coaches, when you have 85 scholarship kids, and say around 100, 120 on the program when it comes to walk-ons. Just think about that. When then in the NFL, for a 53-man roster and 16 practice squad guys, you have as many coaches as you want. Is that kind of off balance a little bit? So you're telling me the best of the best are allowed to have more coaches than college? Which is kind of funny, isn't it? And when in the realm you think of it, right, you'd almost think it would be a reverse situation. Less players, more coaches for the NFL. It's always funny. That's always funny to me. And when it comes to coaches, I could very easily see it being you do have a cap, though. You cap the college coaches as opposed because I could see some schools and universities abusing the unlimited coaches rules. So, you know what? Double that amount. Let them have 22 coaches on staff. So then you have two of each position. You have a quarterbacks coach, an assistant quarterbacks coach, offensive line coach, assistant offensive line coach, or, however you want to obviously distribute your coaches. But why not? It could potentially make them more prepared for the NFL as well. I mean, I think it's a good thing. I don't think it's a harmful thing, and still have your grad assistants because it's young coaches getting in the game, and it's have your analyst, whatever, that's fine. But double the amount of coaches. Now, when it comes to recruiting aspect of this, keep it at your 11 coaches that can go out and recruit. Because I think that's some of what's so great these coaches are seeing in the NFL. I don't have to go recruit. I can just go. I can coach ball. I can look at tape. I can give some feedback on who I like in the draft and some players I've seen. But ultimately, as a position coach or coordinator, that's not really up to them. It's up to the general manager, the head coach, the scouts that are in deep every day with the college game, watching tape, watching film, making the ultimate decisions on that. They don't have to recruit. So half those coaches wouldn't have to recruit. I think you would see more coaches stay in college. But that's a wait and see. And I think it's eventually going to happen, especially if they start to go to this pro model. Now, I scratched my head earlier this week, and I was like, this is interesting about Bryce Elder. Obviously, he lost the fifth starting job to Ronaldo Lopez, which, like I said, when I've said in previous episodes, wasn't surprising. I figured he would lose a fifth starting job to Ronaldo Lopez in spring training because they want to build up Lopez's innings and they want to kind of monitor Bryce Elder's innings. But you would figure he would be the opening day Gwinnett starter, right? I mean, he was an all-star in the big leagues. He was Gwinnett's opening day starter last year, but nope. He was Gwinnett's number 3 starter. And yeah, the Gwinnett's got a good staff. But the number 3 starter, I was like, looking around, like who we starting in front of Bryce Elder? Darius Fines and A.J. Smith-Sawyer. So that's fine. They'll probably see time in the big leagues. But I think Bryce Elder is your guy. Should be first up. But here's why I think they started him, threw him third in the Gwinnett rotation to try to keep him as best aligned and on track with when Ronaldo Lopez pitches. He threw this week in Chicago, threw on Tuesday. Elder threw on Sunday in Gwinnett. Yes, Lopez pitched well Tuesday in his start. But I don't think that's a long-term plan. So when Ronaldo Lopez moves to the bullpen, Bryce Elder will be on pretty much regular rest and ready when Lopez goes. Yeah, if there's an injury to another starter, I mean, that might change things. But Elder is on track and on path to move right there into the starting rotation when Lopez is sent to the bullpen, which is incredible to me just to think how deep this Atlanta pitching staff really is. I don't think there's any minor league teams that have a pitcher who threw 172 innings and 2/3 innings last year. Oh, yeah, he won 12 games. It had a 3.81 ERA. Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons he's in the minors right now is to hold up, to ease up on those, and why he went third in the rotation in Gwinnett is to kind of cap off those 174 and 2/3 innings. They didn't want him to throw that many innings last year. There's no way they wanted him to, expected him to throw that many innings at the big league level. But obviously they needed him to. Braves had to have him last year. That's why he got tired. And they want Bryce Harper to hopefully be more effective later in the season. I mean, Lopez, obviously, like I said, threw well yesterday, but has a career high 188 innings, and that was back in 2018. The last 3 years combined, out of the bullpen, he's thrown 189 innings, with the highest coming last year in 2023 when he threw 66. So that's where the Braves are at, and that's why I think he came in and pitched third in the Gwinnett rotation. Now, I saw this too, and my first thought was, you're Minnesota. As Minnesota, University of Minnesota is putting spring practice behind a paywall. I go, you're Minnesota. Who do you think you are? They'll be holding 2 practices, open practices to members of the public. And one of those 2 will be with the Dinkytown Athletic Collective, which is their NIL. So, to see more practice and their spring game, you have to become a member of their Dinkytown Athletics. So they have different tiers, and they're not going to be doing a traditional spring game anyway. He's come out and said, potentially based on weather and field conditions and all that, because, it's still cold in April in Minnesota, which isn't out of the norm. A lot of teams and universities these days don't have traditional spring games to begin with. I think another thing he's come out and said, he doesn't want to give opponents the option to seeing what they're doing and what they're working on. And I was like, squinting my eyes, scratching my head, like, who are you? You're Minnesota. You're 50 and 34 overall with PJ Flack there. 29 and 32 in conference. And that's been since 2017. So what are you trying to hide? Really, what are you trying to hide? I mean, opponents can go and watch the tape from last year for the first game, and then you put stuff on tape that first game against a smaller school. You're Northwestern, you're Wisconsin, can see that. That's first game of tape, that first few games, maybe some from last year. And they've got everything. I mean, also, too, are they really getting $110 to $5,500 a year for a subscription, depending on which tier you choose. I mean, are there that many hardcore Minnesota football fans? Maybe. I want to know is if you get the full year, can you cancel and get your money back if you're upset with the product? If you're upset with the product, do you get your money back? Can you cancel, or is it you're just piss poor out of luck? Also, too, on one end, a school like Minnesota has to do whatever they can to raise money for the NIL collective to go get players in the portal, to be competitive in the portal, to be competitive for a high school kid. That's really what it's ultimately what it's at. Not, to me, not, well, we don't want to show off what we're doing to our opponents. It's very interesting. I wonder if we're gonna see more schools do this, depending on how it turns out in Minnesota and the University of Minnesota and how successful they are. That's none of those wait and sees, but I'm not buying it. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at Lock It Up Media. That's Lock It Up Media on Twitter. Have a good week. I'll talk to you next week.